Good evening, internet world. Checking in for another vlog post for this evening because I posted a short clip on a different social media platform about public schools. And the title of that video was 3 Reasons to Abolish Public Schools. And the 3 reasons that I gave were 1, poor quality. 2, oh geez, what was number 2? Let me see. Give me 1 second. 2, lack of choice was number 2. And then number 3 was the government's inability to provide a good service. So those were the 3 reasons I gave. 1 and 3 are kind of redundant, but I ran out of reasons to give for the video because I think the operative reasons are the main reason, the real issue with public schools, I think, is the lack of freedom, the lack of the constraint that's put on individuals, and by that I mean individual families or parents, in the choices that they have to school their children. And so I posted this quick and easy clip, didn't think much of it, and got a bunch of responses. And one of the responses was, hey, why don't you stop worrying about getting a tax credit for people who don't really need it and worry about funding schools and honoring teachers, was the response that I got, which seemed to be missing the point, because the point has very little to do with trying to get a tax break for anyone. I mean, trying to reduce taxes for the public at large sure would be a welcomed byproduct of an effort like that, but it's definitely not the point. And the point is also definitely not to disrespect teachers. I think that teaching young people is a super important profession, and I actually think that by the government having a monopoly on this industry and administering the service rather than it being administered through the free market, I think that does an even greater disservice to the teachers. I think there's probably many well-meaning, hardworking, super brilliant teachers out there that could do a much better job if they had the freedom to create their own curriculum or experiment more. If they had more resources in their classrooms, I could see a society where if education was left up to the free market, or should I say schooling, that teachers would actually have a much better experience. The good ones would have a much better experience. And they would also be relieved to know that their colleagues who don't do a good job, who rather than being protected by a teachers union and are just kept on salary and locked away in some classroom to waste a kid's time for, a group of kids' time for a period a day for an entire year, they would be relieved to know that the good teachers would keep a job and the bad teachers would be sent to a different profession that's more suitable to their skills and capabilities. But all that being said, the one point that was brought up was focusing on funding the school system. And I just had the instinct that funding is not the problem. Again, it's an incentives issue, and again, I just had this hunch that there's no way that the resources that are being sent to the school districts are not enough to achieve the tasks that they're given. And so with a really brief Google search, I found an article, and it's definitely biased. It's from the Washington Policy Center, improving lives through market solutions, right? So this sounds like a very free market, anti-bureaucracy, anti-government bureaucracy organization. Yet, if the information they're putting forward is true, which it just sounds like some very basic numbers pulled from the Seattle school budget, it'd be hard to argue with it. So with that being said, I'll dive into the article. I'll read off some of the main highlights that jumped out to me in a quick read, and put it out there for you to consume and consider what you think. So again, so the title of this article is, at over $19,000 per student, Seattle Public Schools get more money than most private schools, by Liv Finn, the director of the Center for Education at Washington Policy. And this was written on June 27th, 2019, so almost exactly 2 years ago. So, a few points to highlight. The article reads, last week, Seattle Public Schools officials announced their proposed budget for the 1920 school year. At just over $1 billion, school district officials now have $19,740 per student to spend on 52,931 students in 101 schools. So right off the bat, after I had reviewed some of this info and was pulling up the camera, one thought I had was, in what industry are you spending $1 billion to service 50,000 people? Again, I didn't give it that much critical thought, but I was just trying to think of the operating expenses for any service that you would provide that would bring services to essentially 53,000 people, that you would need an operating budget of $1 billion. I don't know. Again, didn't give that one too much thought, but just when you just take it on its face. So, carrying on into the article. In reading the budget, a few key numbers jumped out at this author. The new budget is almost $90 million higher than last year, representing a 10% jump in school budget spending. Overall, the budget has nearly doubled in 7 years. That's an interesting statistic that I'd be curious to know if the population of students has doubled. I doubt it. Has the quality of the service improved by 100%? Doubt it. Carrying on, most school employees at 52% are not teachers. The superintendent's personal office alone has 43 full-time employees. Whoa! So again, just in response to this person who commented on a different video on a different platform, is it a funding issue? It doesn't seem like it. You have $1 billion to service 53,000 people, and yet more than half of your employees to keep this operation running are not teachers. The superintendent's office alone has 43 full-time employees. Wow. Average teacher pay is $83,000 plus $30,000 in benefits for a 10-month work year with lifetime job security after 3 years. Whew. That seems like a pretty decent deal. Again, I'm not hating on any teachers. I want teachers to make a good living, but that definitely pulls away the narrative that they don't have good benefits or aren't able to make a proper living. because in at $83,000 plus another 30 in benefits and some job security, that's a pretty decent gig. The 9 top administrators make over $268,000 a year in salary and benefits. 37 other administrators make on average $190,000 a year. Whoa. Again, those are some big dollar amounts for school administrators. Not saying they don't do a good job. I'm not even saying they don't deserve to be paid well if the market values the service that they're providing to that level. I would be hard pressed to think that 37 of these administrators are, well, I won't even make a judgment on these individuals. Again, I want everyone to prosper. I want everyone to make a great living. There's nothing shameful about earning a good living, but I think it definitely goes against the narrative of being underfunded. What you could say is that, and what I wouldn't be shocked to find out, is that once you actually get to the classroom where the students are being taught, is there maybe a lack of resources that end up there, a lack of petri dishes for the science classes, a lack of textbooks or iPads for other classes, a lack of calculators for the math class, those actual frontline resources to deliver the service to the children. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But again, that isn't necessarily an issue of underfunding. That's an issue of poorly managing the resources, or an inefficient model that can't take the resources it's given, the resources it's given, and efficiently turn that into a service that people are excited about and that they're getting a good deal from. Another bullet point. At 11,100 employees, the student staff ratio is 5-1. Interesting. Again, I think that's just trying to point out that narrative that if it was all teachers, it would knock away that narrative that the classrooms would be over exploding with students in a poor student to staff ratio. Nearly half the budget, $483 million or 46%, is spent at the district's central office. Oh my God! So there's a great example. And again, I haven't dug into this. I haven't done a deep dive like this author did, and of course it's coming from a biased perspective, or at least that they have an agenda, right? They're trying to prove a point, but it's hard to avoid the point that they're making. And I'm sure if you dug into it, it would only reveal more and more absurd arrangements like this, that nearly half the budget at $483 million or 46% is spent at the district central office. I'd be curious to know what this author means by that, spent at the district central office. What exactly is that? Does that mean none of those resources are making it all the way to the classroom? Does that mean it is spent on the individual schools, but that it's not the schools spending it themselves, so it's less efficient? That one might need a little bit more investigation before I fully sign off on what I thought it meant at first glance. But carrying on, let's see what else. The conclusion this author makes is Seattle school administrators clearly have plenty of money, much of which goes into their own pockets in the form of high pay and Cadillac benefits. While working families and elderly couples struggle to pay their property taxes, in addition to state funding, Seattle taxpayers pay $3,000 per student, the highest in the state. The heavy property tax is regressive, falling disproportionately on poor people. Even with top dollar funding, 34% of public school third graders fail in reading and 35% of seventh graders fail in math. In contrast, most of Seattle's private schools receive less money and provide a better education. Here are a few examples. So then list the tuition. And again, I don't think the comparison here is between public and private, and I think that's where a lot of people get maybe a little bit lost or wrapped around the axle. Is it's not a comparison between public and private. I'm not sitting here saying that private schools are better. What I'm saying is by having a government monopoly, you're limiting the choice of these parents. If you were to take away that monopoly and give parents more choice, maybe it's public schools that would thrive. Maybe it's private schools as we know them today, or maybe, like I said in a previous video, by removing that government monopoly, you have a flowering of enterprise and an industry that has been constrained and has been monopolized by the government. The minute you take away those constraints, you would see a boom in business people, entrepreneurs, educators, all rushing to the scene to fill that void and provide a better, more dynamic, more specified in some cases or generic in other cases, just a more diverse set of services to meet the demands and meet the needs of parents in the area. So, let's see, finishing up this article, and I do like these last couple of lines, because the author ends with, and yet Superintendent Juneau, parentheses, pay and benefits of $386,000. Oh my God. Holy moly. Again, I'm not mad at people making a lot of money. I want everyone to prosper. I want people to earn a good living. But you have to question a government bureaucrat that is being allocated dollars from taxpayers and from citizens that is being taken away from them. In many cases, it's not the most voluntary act, where that money's being handed over and then being allocated as a government bureaucrat sees fit, which you just got to question it sometimes, I think. So that superintendent says her budget is not, quote, fully funded and that people are not paying enough. It is certainly audacious and more than a little off-putting that a public official would receive so much money in her budget and still lobby for more. Agreed. Parents, students, and taxpayers deserve better. Seattle families need more school choice options, including access to fully funded public charter schools, so they are no longer trapped in monopoly public systems that so routinely mismanages so much money so badly. So again, I think all of the solutions that are proposed by anyone that I've heard, whether it's charter schools, voucher system, I think all of these, just to break up the monopoly to some degree, I would consider a step in the right direction. But I think the more that I've looked into this, and it's just been in a surface level capacity, because at a certain point, or in the current state of my life that I'm in, what's the return on investment, where this is a giant behemoth of a problem to solve that who knows what it would take to start to chip away at this real issue. But I think any proposals or any policies or solutions that start to take us away from this monopoly and give parents choice and starts to break it up, I think is a good thing. But I think ultimately, the more you contemplate and imagine in your mind what our society would look like if education was left up to the free market, I think it's a more and more enticing idea, and you end up just wanting the whole enchilada rather than settling for a policy proposal that is only a step in that direction. But I would happily take one of any of those steps, again, mainly I think between charter schools or voucher systems, are kind of the two big ones. I think voucher systems to me are even more preferable. It may just be because I'm brainwashed by Milton Friedman, but I think the voucher system is a monumental step in the right direction. So that being said, this is all a bit of a response to that comment that I got, and it wasn't like I felt the need to immediately make this video in response to it. I just saw this comment and I thought, I can't believe that it's a problem with funding, and so I figured I'd do a little research, and just coming across this article, I was like, "Whoa, gotta share this. This is pretty mind blowing stuff." So, hope you all enjoyed. Would love to hear your thoughts, or hey, what are your public schools like in your area? Do you know anything else about how these operations are funded? I'm very interested to know, what percentage of our state budgets are going to public schools. How much money are we getting from the federal government? All of these are very bad things. And so I'll leave you with that. Hope you all have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.